What do you think about how Zelensky's handling everything the last
He's
12
been
months?
brilliant. Zelensky was an actor who played the role of president on a popular television program, and people would joke to him and say, "You ought to be run for president. I mean, all these other guys are doing a terrible job," and he did, and he won. And I never expected this out of him, but he's risen to the moment. He understands his symbolic importance to democracy, to Ukraine, and he's been brilliant. And
you ever met him?
Once, but not in an important way. I mean, and like Ronald Reagan, and really like Donald Trump, he understood how you use the media to promote, and what he's doing. One of the criticisms I always had about the West is their sort of superficial support for Ukraine being a part of Europe. There's a lot of history as to why they didn't want Ukraine to be a part of Europe, but they could never say that. And you look at the support that Western Europe was giving to Ukraine until it became unconscionable not to give it lethal aid, and you see exactly what I'm talking about. Excuse me.
Bless you.
But what Zelensky has done is he recognizes the sort of duplicity of the leadership of Europe, and so he's speaking to these legislatures. The brilliant part of that move is not that he's speaking to the politicians. He's speaking to the people in those countries that those legislatures represent. And he's forcing those legislatures to actually give him the lethal aid that he needs, because he's creating the political groundswell in their countries. That's his brilliance. And
he's also calling on artists to create the groundswell that you're talking about.
Because he understands that the European political community and the Washington political community, by the way, is not. There were a lot of reasons why they were comfortable with the sort of détente that existed between Russia and Ukraine. With Ukraine being Western-oriented, a democracy, not under Russian control, but not outside of Russian hegemony. They accepted that. Merkel, who I think was a terrible leader for Western democracies. She was a patsy for Putin.
You think Merkel was a terrible leader and a patsy for Putin? Why do you say that?
Because I think that she basically empowered Putin to do what Putin is doing today with Nord Stream 2, which totally undercut Ukraine. I mean, the economic lifeblood of Ukraine was that pipeline. And
because it flows from Russia through Ukraine to Germany.
All European gas went through there. And she understood the importance of it, but she signed the Nord Stream 2 deal, which was going to choke off Ukraine, create a vassal state. That's what Putin was trying to do, was one, have the Europeans dependent on the pipeline that he controlled, and two, kill Ukraine at the same time by taking it away. I mean, Putin has been playing these moves for a long time. The West, they're not stupid. They've understood it, but they were comfortable in the little this, little that mentality. Yanukovych upset all of that because Yanukovych said, the Eastern Ukraine leadership wants to be part of Europe. The Western Ukraine leadership wants to be part of Europe. So now we're truly united as a country, wanting to be part of Europe. One of the reasons I got involved with Yanukovych after I was convinced he would support Ukraine coming to into Europe, it was my feeling that Ukraine was the equivalent of Nixon going to China. Only Nixon could open up China because he came from the anti-communist right-wing part of the Republican Party, and so he brought Republicans who would have been the natural opposition into the fold. Same thing was true as far as I was concerned in Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine needed a leader from Eastern Ukraine that could help them accept becoming part of Europe, minimizing the conflicts that could exist. When Yushchenko and the Orange Revolution happened in 2004, I wasn't involved. I got involved, after that, and I got involved, frankly, because it's a little bit of what I was talking about earlier. Yushchenko, who was the Western candidate and who won, was renationalizing companies of Eastern Ukrainian businessmen and then selling them at below bargain prices to his oligarchs. So the transition was happening, and an oligarch who had a steel company had hired Aiken Gump, a Democratic firm, and they asked me to help him as well, and that's how I got involved in Ukraine. But what happened in 2004 as a result of this renationalization and then privatization game that was going on is that the Eastern Ukrainians decided it was time that they really got actively involved in becoming part of Europe, because to be in the current environment that Ukraine had, it was not really getting the protections of free market principles of some of the corruption issues, and so they got all in. Yanukovych convinced me that he would be supportive of it, and I got involved.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.